getting ready to do some detail on the wings today. This is a heat treatment that I use to color the dragon and give him that kind of a color of a dragon that I really like to see. And when I heat treat it, it really warps the material quite a bit. So what we do to get the skinning done is we weld on the steel before the heat treatment. If I was to try heat treating it, which I did try, heat treating the metal before we weld it on, it curls and warps quite a bit, and it's a real fight to get it on the wing. So I'm about to start blending this raw material into the heat treated material, so then it'll look kind of like this side. It'll all just blend into one big skin in the wing. This Tiger torch is just for heating, and it's a larger flame, bigger than one you'd use for welding or cutting. I heat the metal in long streaks, and then I do a long streak, and then beside that, and beside that, and beside that, and it gives that length and texture going up the wing rather than heating it in small areas and making it patchy. So what we're doing today is I'm going to show you how this texture is made. So these dimples started off by hammering with a hammer in a sandbag, and using a ball peen and the round end of a ball peen hammer. And today we're going to use a power hammer instead. So this speed hammer is about 110 years old. It was lent to me from a friend, and since then I've ended up purchasing it because I've needed this hammer for what I do, and it's been a lifesaver. I would be doing all of this by hand if it wasn't for this machine. This speed hammer's powered by a foot pedal. This foot pedal is hooked up through that chain to a clutch drive. Behind the clutch drive is a crankshaft, and that crankshaft is similar to a car. It has an arm that is in a kind of an egg shape, and it goes around and it drives the piston up and down, and that's what makes the hammer go up and down. So the harder I push on the foot pedal, the harder it drives that piston and allows me to do the hammering. This is a wing covering, so depending on the texture of what I'm building, some of the texture is larger. I hammer larger dents into it. But these are more speed dimples, I would call them, rather than making real heavy hammering and making larger dimples like I did on parts of the body. This is a little finer look for a finer detail. Once I start hammering, I try to hammer about an inch apart, and then I just keep going. I look for blank spaces, and I just keep going. Usually I'll start in the middle and work my way out. We want these to be curled around a piece of pipe, so working from the middle out, it'll actually start forming from the hammering, and it'll give it a round look to it. It's important when hammering and when you're using the clutch to not move your piece until the head stops moving. If the head is still going up and down and you move it, you're just going to get a chatter across your surface. So it's really important that you wait, you don't move it, and you allow that head to stop moving before you move your piece. Otherwise you'll just get hammer marks all over your piece. I've had Josh hammering wing pieces today. He's been working on this machine all morning, and he's doing a good job, so I'll show you the pieces he's making, and these are the cover pieces that we'll be putting on the wing. These will make up the fingers for the wing. These structural pipes inside This is to give the wing strength. And now we're going to be putting the finishing work on the wing, and that's how these will go on. They cover up the welding. There's some knuckle pieces that we'll be fabricating that kind of flare out and then go skinny again, so it'll give it that kind of a knuckle joint in the wing bone. And yeah, and they look pretty good. As we get these done, these will be on both sides, so there's quite a bit of work to do. Josh will be hammering for about a month. So this is the largest claw on the Dragon, and I've had Corey doing all the texture welding on here. So the reason we do this is just so it doesn't look like a plain piece of metal. We wanted to put some texture on it, give it that feel of similar to what I've done on the head with the horns and the spikes. Gives it a lot of texture, it darkens it, and just gives it something that it looks like a lot of work went into. And so these claws mount to the front of the wing on each side, and these are basically what the Dragon would use to crawl on the ground or hook into a wall and climb a wall with them. All the welding that's done on here creates a lot of heat, and it actually shrinks them in a little bit. So I ran these in an English wheel to put a bit of a crown on them to help prevent that. But there was so much welding and so much heat in here, even bouncing around between the claws and the different sides to try to control and keep the heat down, it still sucked it in a little bit. So we're gonna put a press inside of here and just press out some of the dents and give it a nice convex curve to it and look a little more natural. My name's Kevin Stone. I have been a metal sculptor for almost 20 years now, and as you can see behind us, I'm finishing a Game of Thrones dragon right now. It's all in steel, heat-treated steel, and this came about from a client being in Dollywood. So I built an eagle for Dolly Parton about 12 years ago, and this client was there with his children and came across my eagle and called me up. So I said, well, I'm happy to, I'll build you whatever you want. One thing led to another, and within literally a couple weeks, I was buying material and building a dragon. So this is Drogon, which is the main dragon from Game of Thrones. And he was the, I guess, Khaleesi's main dragon, or her personal pet out of the 3 dragons. In the end, our vision is to have colored lights in his eyes that you'll be able to remotely change from orange to blue, and he'll have the 2 different options of that. Overall length is approximately 55 feet. Weight is about 12,000 pounds finished, so he's probably getting close to that now. Inside is a huge structural frame. He was really designed to have the wings out rather than down, so the frame actually can support his wings out versus having these extra mounting points. But his wings outstretched would be 90 to 100 feet, and his body is 9 feet wide, just the body, and 12 feet tall off the ground. His tail's 26 feet long. The tail mounted is about 30 to 35 feet in the air, and I guess his head's probably 7 or 8 feet off the ground total. The tail had no detail when we came here. It was just a skinned cone basically. And Michelle and I made all the fins for it that matched the neck and all the spikes down the middle of his back. And as you can see, there's still welding left to do. So really all that's left now, it's a finished tail. We just have to finish up the welding and put some belly scales on it. And then the tail is ready for mounting. And then the wings, as you can see, we're templating the final webbing of the wings. This pipe that is a structural support for the webbing of the wings, this will all be covered. We're going to be making a textured skin with a little bit smaller dimples than this, and the textured skin will be over top of the pipe, hiding it and giving it more of the skin and the tone and feel of the dragon. This will be a big knuckle and a big claw, so the claw will be about this size, and the claw will be kind of like a hook claw that'll face in on an angle. I'll make this out of 3 pieces, and it'll all be shaped and round and 3-dimensional, so like a big hook. The head and neck is all finished. So we've been working on the shoulders. The shoulder is a complicated, probably one of the more complicated parts of the dragon. But once that's done and I do the elbows, the wings are finished. This will actually have another webbing inside of here. So Drogon, when he bends his arms, you can see another web in here which helps him fly and gives him some more wing support in his wings. These feet were quite complicated because underneath the feet is an 1.5 inch mounting base with all the holes that'll be anchored into concrete. I designed the feet over top of the base, but to be removable. So the feet unscrew and you can pull the feet off, they're hollow inside, and then you can access all the mounting points for the steel and the concrete. I started putting texture on all of the claws, and there's still lots to do yet. It's a slow process because you can't put too much heat into it. It'll start warping the claws. Inside his mouth you can see the 2 flame starters, and inside is the propane tube. It's a 3/4 inch tube where the main propane is launched from. So the head was a lot of work really. This is all round bar, all tapered to make the horns, and then all the welding in here to fill it all in. And I was planning to just completely cover it in weld and not expose any of the round bar, but I thought once we got so far, the round bar actually kind of gave it some bone and texture to it. Each one of these horns, they're 3 feet long, and there's, I don't know, maybe 60 pieces of round bar plus all the welding. There's hundreds of feet of welding in each horn. Like it took so long to do, and pounds and pounds and pounds of wire. These are all heat treated round steel, all tapered into a point on a belt sander, and then I heated them up and hammered them into different bends and mounted them into different shapes. And teeth sometimes have a lot more curve and texture to them, but the more I studied Drogon, the more his teeth were really just like needles. They just kind of stuck out everywhere, and there was no science behind it. They just kind of were random needles. So I tried to represent that as best I could in his teeth. Up inside of here is where the colored lights will be hidden. So they're flush mounted LED lights that change color, and they'll just glow. They basically will just give his eye a glow at night, and can be orange or blue. And I'm gonna polish the eye to a mirror finish. And then once the pupil is airbrushed in there, I'll probably clear coat it just to give it depth and a shine over top of it.
Is this the coolest thing you've ever worked on?
It definitely is. I mean, it's the most detailed project I've done. Not the most time consuming. My first dragon actually took longer because of the level of polishing. But the amount of pieces and parts that have been on this dragon, and the amount of welding and the overall scale and difficulty of working on it, it's definitely been the hardest project I've ever done. So. we're just in the start of March right now, and I would like to be somewhat done the Dragon by April, end of April, at the latest, pushing into May. So where we're at is we got all the wing bones tacked on. There's lots of welding left to do. I've got to finish the wing bones up to the wing tips, and each wing tip has a spike. So I got to fabricate those spikes into the wing tip, and then start on the elbow and blend the wing skin into the back of the arm and do the webbing in his elbow. So in his elbow he gets a web in there too. So we started working on that and templating it. And I'd like to wrap these wings up to the point where basically from his bicep to the rest of his wing, have that all wrapped up this month for sure. And then next month, basically all I'll have left next month is to work on the shoulders. And the shoulders are quite a bit of work because we got to make a dividing point in the shoulders, and the shoulders unbolt from the Dragon. And the shoulders are pretty exciting because that's a huge area which will really build strength to the Dragon. You know, that's his big shoulders are which puts all the power into the wings. And I'm pretty excited about that. That's kind of like, it's going to change the look of the Dragon having big shoulders dramatically. So I'm really looking forward to that. You know, everybody's been seeing this Dragon kind of look the way he looks for a year now, and those shoulders actually will change him quite a bit. So pretty excited about getting that finished. Oh, we're getting the sheets laid out, cleaned up and cut for the wings. So we're starting the shoulders of the wings. This is just mild steel 18 gauge sheet metal. This is cold roll versus hot roll. Hot roll has a black carbonized coating on it, which isn't very nice to work with when you're doing artwork or anything clean. If you're working on automotive or sculpture, stuff like that, you want nice clean material. I wish I could get all material like this, but most material, tubing and pipe and stuff like that, it all comes, they make it hot for shaping. Cold roll's expensive. You can get cold roll tubing and stuff, but you pay through the nose. It's like buying stainless steel or alloy because it's a harder process to make. So what we're doing is up on the shoulder where the two pieces of flat bar are joined all the way around it, we're sandwiching the dividing point, I guess you could say. So we're making the dividers that will separate the fabrication to the body to the fabrication to the wings, and that'll be the seam where the two meet. A little bit bigger job than I had anticipated once I started looking at it this morning, so oh well, that's all right, we'll get there. One piece at a time, one problem at a time, and we'll get through it. I started off making a cardboard template. It's easy to cut, easy to lay out, and then I can just trace it out on the clean piece of metal. The next step will be to cut all four pieces. Then pair them up. So I'll take two pieces and clamp them together and get them as square as I can to each other. And then I'll go around all the edges and grind them so they're exactly the same, and that'll be a pair. And then I'll take the other two, clamp them together, grind all the edges so they're exactly the same. Then I have two working pairs for each side of the Dragon. The shoulder on the arm here will come down. That'll be like the muscle on his arm. Then it's going to come up to his shoulder. And then the shoulder is where it splits. So the wing will separate from here. And then from here, it'll go in a nice curve over to the body. What I'm trying to accomplish is when the wing is bolted on, you almost don't see the installation where the wing bolts to the body. It's all going to look seamless. There you go. Nice. Wow, good fit. So today we've been working on the Dragon, and what I started off doing was building the cuticle. So this is going to be where the skin ties into the claw. I had Michelle make some templates for me, and these are going to go on here. And after these templates are fitted, we'll be able to transfer these to steel. And then from there we'll cut the steel, we'll heat it up and give it the coloring of the Dragon. And then we'll take it over to the power hammer and we will do all the hammer texturing and you know, make this finish look like it blends right in and around the claw. And then we'll do that again, make another template here to fill these sides in. But it's a bit of a long process. It's making sure everything fits, especially this is kind of like in your face when you're walking up to the sculpture. It's one of the first things that draws your eyes to the claws and the wings, and it's kind of a major feature of the piece, so we want it to blend in and look nice. Like next level here. For installation purposes, we'll be cutting this, I don't know, dolly, I guess you'd call it, the wing dolly, off the plate for the plate to mount to concrete. So once this is all fabricated, I'll use the plasma and we'll cut holes in here and make anchor points. So when we're on site and this is sitting on concrete, I'll be able to drill down with a hammer drill, pound anchors in there and bolt it down, and then that'll be ready for installation. So today we're making these screw-on, and the reason for that, normally I would build this up and weld this all permanently for the wings, but we're trying to convert the wings to break down into multiple pieces for shipping. And it's not been an easy challenge, but these are quite big on the tips of all the wings, and so we've decided to just cap the end with a nut welded in there and put a threaded rod, a threaded bolt on these so we can screw them on and screw them off for shipping. And then we're going to try to get as much of this section of the wing done over the next couple weeks. I'd like to ship the Dragon and the tail to Puerto Rico first, and then we have some work to do on the wings to figure out how I'm going to divide the wings in half and make them go back together on site and not look like they've come apart. And I didn't engineer them that way, so now I have to cut them apart and re-engineer them to go back together. Yeah, complicated. I'm a little frustrated. So what I came up with is a welded nut on the back of a cap, so that goes on the pipe at the top of the wing, and then another just a quickly plasma cut washer with a bolt through it, 3/4 inch bolt, and we stuff this up inside, find a way that it fits nice, tap that up inside, and then we tack that on or stitch it on so it's nice and strong, and then this will be at the top of the pipe, and then we just thread these two together and it makes the claws removable. Where I've got all this weld on ugliness on here, I'll grind this all off and then probably just fix some of the beads and make this weld disappear. So grind that off, re-weld some of the beads that go through here just so it doesn't look like it's been welded and ground, and then and then weld that in there, and then we're ready to go. So we've done one side of the wing already, or one wing already. We're going to move over to the other side of the Dragon and do the other wing. So when I made these, I just tacked these in a little bit, just a small tack, just to line them up. Now I'm kind of happy with them. I'm just going to add a little bit more weld before I screw them on permanent. Well, they're not going to be permanent, but I just add a little bit more weld before I screw them on, so I know that they're never going to break. Yeah, so rather than a tack, I'm just adding like a 1/2 inch of weld in stitches. Just makes it nice and strong. So we're just capping the pipe. I've bucked it off on an angle so the cone comes off on a bit of an angle, and seems to be working out, so I'm welding them on. Sit to the spikes. Till I change my mind. We're putting the knuckles on the wings. We've been making these in 4-foot pieces, and this piece and that piece ended up just a hair short to build the knuckle. So I'm tacking this and filling it in, and then Josh will come and he'll template this in paper and then hammer this out for me. And then I'll put it in. Really good machine settings is the key. Tight fits. Obviously, if you have a tight fit, anything's easy to weld. I've had people on the channel ask me, why are you doing so much spotting? Well, as you can see here, there's a big gap here. We're cutting and trying to pull these pieces down so they're tight, but we don't always get them perfectly tight. They could have as much as well, maximum I'm trying to stay less than 3/16 of an inch, but 3/16 of an inch on 18 gauge metal is you know, twice as thick almost as the metal itself, the space. So you have to have a little bit colder setting and faster wire feed speeds, so the wire is kind of filling, and it's a little bit of a colder weld. So you want a little colder weld to fill the space and bridge across, and you don't want it too cold that you're not getting a good tack, but at the same time the wire feed speed will compensate for that. So if you got a decent amount of heat but lots of wire feed speed, it'll strike the arc and fill fast, so you get a fast filling tack, and then bounce around. Don't put too much heat on the metal because it's thin and it'll just blow through if you keep trying to tack it over and over and over. So bounce around. And keep your tacks short. Don't do big, long, heavy, hot tacks. And if you got a, ouch, if you got a big space like this area, I do a little dab on one side and a little dab on the other to build up some meat. This actually, what it does is it makes the metal thicker because you're adding a tack on one side, a tack on the other, then you bridge the two. So that seems to be a great method of do lots of, it's called stitching. So basically you're putting stitches across the gap, and those stitches start to work as a heat sink and help you fill up the metal. So. working our way up all the knuckles and getting all the wing fingers finished, ready for welding, lots of tacking. Once everything's tacked down tight, we'll weld it all out. And then we'll move our way up to the elbows. So the elbows, I'm trying to get everything wrapped up so we can start on the elbows and get the elbows finished up. And then we'll be onto the shoulders, which is the last major fabrication on the Dragon, and then we'll be done. So I'm hoping if we keep pushing hard, maybe 2 weeks, and we should be close to wrapping up the Dragon. Well, we're finally on the home stretch with the Dragon, and We started the shoulder yesterday and we're working on the other shoulder today, and we're wireframing this up. We've got 16 gauge mild steel, and I just make strapping and I kind of wireframe everything up and get a skeleton of what we're building and get the shape. Once I get the skeleton with the flat bar, the strapping I call it, I shape it all, get the shape, and then we template it in paper, and then start skinning our pieces once we get the templates. So this has to be lifted up a little bit, and I'm building, it's a little bit complicated, but this is 2 pieces. So there's a skin on this side which is actually attached to the wing. Then there's another skin on the inside which is attached to the body, and there'll be a seam here, and I'm trying to make a really tight seam, so tight that it just looks like a weld from a distance. You won't even see where the wing bolts on, and that seam is what separates the wing from the Dragon for shipping. So and at the same time we're making that seam part of his big shoulder. So this is kind of like a big round shoulder on the front of the Dragon. That's it. Now we can put that in there. That should hold everything into place. You want a propane torch or?
Woo!
Holy small. We're not going to do the big one.
Come on. It's not going to light anything on fire. Let's stand back.
Hold on.
Well, I'm not going to stand too close.
Is that a good?
Wow.
Whoa!
Perfect. Fucking perfect. Woo! Gotta do one more.
Hold on, let me back up. Hold on.
Get over here.
Get over here just a sec. Let us record.
That was friggin' awesome. Well, it's an exciting week for us. It's mid-December. We started Drogon in October of 2020. So now we've done a big push and Drogon is finished this week. So last week we showed you videos and pictures of him shooting fire. And this week as you can see, Michelle behind us, she's cleaning. So we're doing the final cleaning, wiping him down. The boys have been just finishing up. They finished up the shoulders, on the back side of the shoulders. They're all encased and finished, and the skin is done and the welding's done. And they're just working on the top of the legs. So we're building his hips where his legs join his body and skinning that section, putting lifting points in his hips where the crane can lift him from the back. We finished the tail. The tail just needed some belly scales and some side scales and some lifting points. So today I'm actually just welding in some lifting points into the tail so that when the crane lifts him, the tail will balance properly for installation. And we've had a few trucking companies here now looking at the wings of how we're going to support the wings on an angle. It's quite complicated, but we need to, when the wings come off, they need to be supported on the trailer when it's going to Utah. Everything's working as far as the fire system goes. Wow! The last thing that we need to work on is his sparkers. We trouble checked the whole system last week. We had a ticketed gas fitter come in and inspect my work. We found out that the pilot holes were too large, so we TIG welded the pilot holes closed and re-drilled them with smaller holes, and they worked perfect. And the only thing we're getting now is the fire system works on a key fob, so when you push the key fob down and hold it, that triggers the gas valve to open up for the pilot lights and allows the gas to flow. Basically, it's just a car alarm inside with a key fob to trigger all the actuators that are inside. There's a 12-volt car battery inside the Dragon, along with the propane system that I built, and it has a charging system as well. When you hit the door to unlock it or lock it, that triggers the fire mechanisms, and to shoot the flame out of him is the trunk button. So you just hit the trunk button once he's up and piloted up and running. You just hit the trunk button as many times as you want and he'll shoot flames. So we're pretty excited about that. It's been 2 years, really. It's been just a hair longer than 2 years. And he's finally going to his forever home. This Dragon here is a little bigger and a little more detailed than I realized I was getting myself into when we started this project. We started it in October of 2020, and now we're standing in front of a finished 55-foot steel Game of Thrones Dragon. I never knew what Game of Thrones was when this project started, so I went home and printed some pictures to have as reference pictures while I was constructing him, and that's all we went off of. The owner liked the pose where Drogon lands on the wall of a coliseum and he's shooting fire. You know, the owner asked while we were starting construction if I could make it shoot fire, and I thought, well, it's Drogon, he's got to shoot fire. It's all done with a remote, it's all done with a remote key fob, and this key fob we'll turn on the pilot lights, and then if you hit the trunk button, that'll shoot fire.
Hold on.
We didn't really have a budget. I was just, putting metal into him until I was finished. So I think I spent in and around $50,000 Canadian in steel material for him. Total time to make him was about 16 months of actual solid work. And that's several people working on him. Well, once Drogon's fully assembled on site, from head to tail, and his tail goes up about 30 feet in the air, which is, I can't wait to see it. So he's about 55 feet long from head to tail. Now, if his wings were to be outstretched, he'd have about a 100-foot wingspan. But because of the pose he's in and he's crawling on his wings, it's about a 40-foot wingspan. And he weighs approximately 15,000 pounds in steel. I don't work with computers or CNC tables or anything like that. If it's a subject that is out there, whether it be a T-Rex or a Drogon or a bird or an eagle, whatever I'm building, I'll just take some photographs and print some photographs, usually off of Google, for reference pictures, and then I just build by eye. So that's how I work. I started with his lips. So the lips of his mouth and the gums of his mouth framed out the opening for his mouth. Then it allowed me to build one layer for the lips, another layer for the gums, and start layering my way into his mouth. Then I built the interior of his mouth and the tongue area and his teeth, and just kind of worked my way out from that. All of these horns are half-inch round bar, and they were bent. I have a hole in my big fab table. I just have a hole in it, and I take the round bar and I just bend it little bit by little bit, inch by inch, to get a nice curve in them. And then once I had a cone, I welded the end, had this all welded to the ring, and then I just filled all the hollows of the round bar with welding. And in some areas I didn't fill it all the way because I actually liked the texture of the round bar coming through the welding, and it gave it kind of a bony feel, a bony look to it. And then in here, there's two pieces of round bar to make the cone or the triangle shape. Then I shaped sheet metal, just 18 gauge sheet metal over top of each spike, and then I textured it all with rows and rows and rows of welding. He had a few different size teeth, and they have all these curves and different angles to them, but they were very much needle-like in all the reference pictures I looked at. They're just made out of round bar. I sharpened a bunch of round bar and bent them in different sizes and different angles, and they look pretty vicious and they are pretty sharp. So.